episode, I talked to my friend and author of all things dark and strange, Thomas Micheal Thomas. You might know him from his books, The Evil Within the House or Witch Hypnosis. I had a great time talking horror and metal with Micheal, and I hope you enjoy. After you're done with this episode, make sure you check out my fellow horsemen of the podcast apocalypse. Everything Went Black podcast, Into the Necrosphere, the Necromaniacs podcast, Spitball Media, Iblis Manifestations, and the Soul Knocks podcast. Also check out my Horrorwolf 666 podcast Teespring store. There's shirts, mugs, sweatshirts, all kinds of stuff on there. And that helps me, keep the podcast going and stuff. If you buy stuff off of there, it's much appreciated. So check that out. And also wherever you listen to the podcast at, if you could leave me a review, if it's Apple, Spotify, whatever, that really helps, like getting it out there in the world. So that's much appreciated. And once again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
The pod, and they I would leave like a little Easter egg for them where I would just be like, check 1, 2, and then it'd be like, hello, how are you, Brandon? And I would just like leave that in there and not tell them.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, whenever you're ready, we can go for the gold.
Well, Micheal, thanks so much for being on the podcast, man. It's definitely overdue.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, it was cool. It was really nice running into you at a Spooky Empire last year, man. What a great fucking horror convention.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I'm not like an enormous fan of social media, but there are like good things, like really good things about it. Like I noticed that since you and I followed each other on Instagram, you have commented almost on every band that I posted, whether it's like Neurosis or some obscure black metal band. And I'm like, cool, this guy knows these bands, which usually I post that when I'm going on a run. And it's kind of funny because usually when older metal dudes meet each other, they want to give each other this "Are you cool" card and check these boxes. And here, like you were like into the same fucking bands. And I'm like, wow, this guy's like, not only are you a cool dude, but you're like into the same shit. And sometimes you just don't find people like that. So it's really cool meeting because I'm like, oh man, he likes a lot of the same stuff. And, and plus the horror on top of it. Like that's really cool.
Yeah, dude. When you posted Neurosis and stuff, that like automatically makes you cool in my book. I mean, because Neurosis is one of my favorite bands. So you posted them, and I saw you post Oculus, one of my favorite black metal bands out of Denver. And a lot of people don't know them. Well, they do. If you know them, you know them. You know what I mean? Like, they're like one of my favorite fucking bands right now. So
yeah, they're so good. Sometimes like that's that kind of black metal that gives you tears in your eyes, like when you're running like real hard, or I think you're more of a weightlifter. There's points where you listen to like really extreme music where it's hitting parts you didn't expect. Like sometimes a chord progression will sneak in and kind of like, oh my god, this is so good. Kind of like gives you almost like a physical mental high. And it's beautiful that music can do that. But I think Oculus is one of those bands, and Neurosis is one of those bands that can do that.
Oh yeah, definitely, dude. That's some of my go-to workout music, and with Oculus or whatever. Like that's the kind of black metal I like. I like really nasty, like heavy, violent black metal, with like a real creepy vibe to it. And they definitely hit all those marks. So
yeah, have you ever seen either Neurosis or Oculus before?
I haven't seen Oculus live, but I have seen Neurosis, I think 3 or 4 times. And
no way.
the best time seeing them was at the old Masquerade down in Georgia. This was I think one of the last performances they had. I think it was the last performance at the old Masquerade. But yeah, dude, it was a life-changing moment. And still to this day, like it was the best live show I've ever been to, man. It was like something out of this body, Is
that when they did a lot of the visuals where they had a lot of the stuff play over the band? Like I think they used to do like a lot of scenes from movies and like lights and stuff like that.
Well, this is when they were kind of stepping away from that. I have seen them with all the lights and all the projectors and stuff, but this was like kind of right after all that happened. Mm-hmm. But the performance was still just fucking mind blowing. Like the way the crowd interacted with the band, like we're all together as one and just like swaying. There wasn't a moshing or anything. We're all like swaying together and just like mass of humanity. It was fucking amazing.
That's awesome, especially like Locust Stars, like. That just that's another level. Like that song, like that just
Oh
completely plays
man.
to place.
Oh yeah, definitely. And when I first saw them, it was at the I think it was at the Scion Music Festival, which was also in Georgia, I believe, and it was like
Okay.
snowing and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, that's back when they had their whole visual show and everything, and yeah, that was also just fucking cool as hell. But it was in a big giant venue outside, so you didn't get like the intimacy that you had when you're seeing them so close at the masquerade. You know what I mean?
Okay. Is the Masquerade, is that like the legendary place where Mastodon did the Blood and Thunder video? Wasn't it? I think that's where it was, wasn't it? That sounds kind of
Yeah, I
familiar.
believe so. Yeah, because Mastodon's right from that area too. Yeah, like the
Okay.
Masquerade like has a bunch of history and stuff of a lot of really killer bands coming through there.
That's awesome. And I think Kylesa are from there too, like around that area.
Yeah, yeah, they're also from that area as well, and they're
Uh,
fucking awesome.
Yeah, yeah. But it's
My
cool, man.
good. What was that?
No, I would say it's cool that we could without trying, we're like we're just drawn from the same pool of like musical knowledge. I mean, aside from just what minimal contact we've had on like social media, it's just funny. It's just funny that we're 2 minutes into the podcast and we're like drawn from the same circle of bands from that era. That's really cool.
Yeah, man, I mean that's the like the bread and butter like stuff I like, and funny thing is with Kyle so one of my really good friends was in that band. Kyle isn't not active anymore, but Philip Cope, the guitarist of Kyle so we're
Oh,
really good
okay.
friends, and he does every year we do a Halloween edition of this podcast, and he's always a guest on there.
No way.
So yeah,
What is he doing now? Is he still in music?
yeah, he's in a really cool like kind of psychedelic metal band called Oakskin.
Okay.
I think they got some stuff up on Bandcamp. You definitely want to check that out. And yeah, he's in that, and he runs live sound, he records people and stuff. Like he
Okay.
stays busy.
And I knew Laura, what's her name? Laura Pleasance had, I think she was doing like some indie rock thing, like a heavier indie rock band.
Yeah, and I can't remember the name of that, but yeah, she's doing
Sure.
that and stuff. So I think everybody in that was in that band is staying pretty active.
Okay. I saw Kylesa with, they're defunct now. I think the band was called Zoroaster. They were just
Oh yeah,
just like wall of amps of stoner metal. They played in Tampa back in like, gosh, like 2009. I caught them on that tour. That was really cool. But I've never
that
seen
is cool.
never seen Oculus. I mean, I have some cool catalogs of bands that I've seen, but some of those stoner bands, like when they were touring a lot, those bigger bands like Mastodon was getting big, and I was from like what do you want to call it? From Blood Mountain to Crack the Sky. I was able to catch them on a tour. They played with Converge and High on Fire. I think they played out in Orlando, and that to me was like a huge show because Crack the Sky was a great record for Mastodon. They stepped into the prog world pretty heavy, but that was a fun time.
Yeah, that is a really good album. I do prefer like my Macedon, like the reemission versions,
Right.
the old stuff back in the day with the heavier vocals and stuff. But Crack the Sky is still like a fucking perfect album for what it
Oh,
is. I think
definitely.
it's fucking great, and it's their change up in styles too.
Yeah, and I kind of I hate saying this. I've told a friend this, but I kind of feel like Mastodon put out their first four perfect records, and they kind of did what Metallica did, where the Hunter turned into their Black album because it got really accessible. Like I like the Hunter album, but I love those first four Mastodon records. That sound was like they were changing the genre as they were doing it for that progressive sludge, or that what do you want to call them? That people call them like a proto sludge, where they were doing this noodling, but they were still heavy, and they had the Mountain Man vocals at the same time. By the time the
Hmm.
100 came out, they were getting bigger and they were playing bigger fests, and I guess it just comes with the territory. And the Baroness did the same thing, where they went from like the red album to the blue album, and you're like, oh wow. And then when they went to the next one, you're kind of like, all right, this kind of got a little, I don't want to say softer, but more rock than sludge and harder style. But you know what? I think Mastodon and Kyle Less, they were all drawn from that same pool for those first couple records. It was just heavy, heavy pedals, heavy distortion, and then I don't know if it's drugs and they take a couple delay pedals, and I'm like, all right, this is still heavy, but it's getting kind of outer space at the same time. You see this? It happened like organically with those three bands too, where they changed.
Right.
Like, next record, they're kind of like still good, but different good. It wasn't like as grit and tooth.
I think out of all those bands, I think Kylesa stayed the heaviest to their original sound because
Yeah,
even
yeah,
their later stuff was still heavy as fuck. I thought.
yeah, because they added a second drummer too, so that made them still punishing.
Yeah, I got to see them live with the whole second drummer thing, and yeah, dude, it was so it was fucking heavy as hell.
And was that second drummer, was he from, they did a split, I can't remember the name. Was it the Unpersons? Was that the name of the band? No, wait, that was Baroness and Unpersons. I know there was a band that was on my radar, and I think they scooped up that drummer and brought him on tour with them. I don't know if it was. I think Baroness did a split with Unpersons where it was like two really really long songs, and then I was like, oh, I know that band, and I looked them up, and I'm like, that remember that they probably stole the drummer from that band, or they're probably all friends, and they were just like, well, let's just put another drum set on the tour bus. But I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I don't know how that went down exactly. But I know they did some splits with like there was a band called like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar maybe or something
Okay.
in that line of yeah. I think that was one of the bands they did a split with and stuff, and that could have been one of the drummers they shared with. I'm not 100% sure on that though.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, so don't know anything about that all the way. So, but yeah, seeing Neurosis like yeah, that's like one of the best things ever to
Yeah,
happen in
I
life
envy
for
you
me.
on
You
that
know?
one. They've I don't know if they've ever come to Florida, but in my time here, they've I would have had a, when I got into Neurosis, I moved to Florida probably in 2007, and I think they probably slowed down and their touring, and if they did, it was like gigantic fests. So I'd never got a chance to see them, and I don't know where
Damn.
their state is now. I know there's stuff going on with Scott, so I'm not sure what where the band's going to go next. But I mean, he's an irreplaceable person vocally and guitar wise. So I'd hope they'd still continue as a band. I don't know if they made any announcements or anything like that.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything on that. I just know nothing's really. To me, I think it might be done, but who knows? But I guess we'll see as time goes. But I think it might just be done. I don't know.
Maybe. So you
Yeah,
saw some legendary stuff.
I did. Yeah, and I'm so glad I got to. Before all that happened. So I
Yeah,
also got to see High on Fire at a really small club. So that was pretty fucking cool. I've seen them 3 times, I think.
nice,
And they
nice.
always put on a really good show. Yeah, last show I saw with High on Fire, I think they were playing with I want to say it was Author and no, it wasn't Author and Punisher. That was Today is a Day. But anyways, I saw High on Fire in like in a small club type area, and yeah, they destroyed that place.
That's awesome. I saw Today's the Day, Author and Punisher, and I think the was Weed Eater out at the club in LA, the one where I don't want to name it because of it. It's the River Phoenix Club. I can't remember the name of the club.
Hmm.
You know the club. I mean, people who are listening
Yeah.
to the podcast are probably yelling the name of the club. I can't think of it. But my friend and I were working out there we were working for a company, and I was like, dude, we got to go see this Weed Eater show. And I like Today's the Day. I didn't know who Lord Dying was, and Author and Punisher were new to me. So we walk in, and it was just that dude's sick. I mean, it
Oh
was a
yeah.
performance. Like it was amazing. The gate was no, it's not the Gator. The Viper Room, is that the name of the club?
I
Where
think that is. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the Viper Room. I think you're correct.
And I'm pretty sure that's closed now. So that was cool. I was out there for that.
Yeah. Me and my wife saw that same tour with Weed Eater, Author and Punisher, and Today's the Day. That was a
That's
hell of a
awesome.
tour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Today's the Day have that insane record, Temple of the Morning Star. Like that thing is like somebody's punch you right in the heart as soon as you put the record on. That's a really good record.
Yeah, dude, it's great workout motivation. That's
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I know Jeff Whitehead from Leviathan has like he always has said that he thinks Today's the Day is like an American black metal band. It's just they're not recognized as it because I think Steve Austin just it's just Today's the Day. But I can see what he means for how raw and how self-loathing it is at the same time. Like I could see that being considered black metal for not the aesthetics, but in terms of personality and how angry those records are.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I can totally see that. And also vocally too, like, Steve Austin's highs are like really black metal highs. So I could
Yeah,
see that working in there as well.
yeah, and he's been pushing that for what since 94, 95. Like he's always been hitting drinking from that same stream. Just being as intense as a human as possible.
Yeah, and I love it. And he's still doing that too. I follow him on social media and stuff, and he's always working on something. So I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure we'll probably get a new album out sooner than later.
yeah. And there's that one killer record where he has Brandaler and Bill on it. I can't remember the name of the record, but he had the two Mastodon guys. I think it was might have been pre-Mastodon.
Hmm.
I can't remember the name of the damn record. I love how we're. Oh, there's a cat visiting. There's a cat visiting. That's what the was behind me. I had to take my cat to the vet today, Mr. Berger. He's doing well, but every time
That's
I mention
good.
his name, everybody cracks up pretty hard when I called for the appointment. And they're like, "What's your cat's name?" And I say his name is Mr. Berger. There's just immediately laughter, and she says his name, and she's laughing. And the lady in the background's laughing. So I went in today. I was like, "Oh, Mr. Berger's here, everybody." He's like his name creates a stardom. Like if you ever met him, you'd be like, I could see why you call him Mr. Berger. But yeah, he's doing well. He just went for a checkup.
That's good. Yeah. We just got a brand new kitten. I think he's going on 4 or 5 months now. We got him as really young, but he just came back from his visit last week he had to get fixed and microchipped and all that stuff. And he has a long name. My wife gave him his first name because she's a big Supernatural fan. So his first name is Castiel. Middle name because he kind of he looks a lot like Jareth from the Labyrinth. So Jareth is his middle name.
Okay.
And last name is Legion. So Castiel, Jareth Legion.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
My wife likes Supernatural. We went to there was a town up there where they had filmed, and we drove home. Our home is originally Pennsylvania, and she's like, "Can we go stop in? I think it's Covington, Georgia." And we stopped there. We didn't stay there, but we stopped for a couple hours, and we were able to. I think I'm thinking of the wrong show. I'm an idiot. I think it might be Vampire Diaries. She's into that show. I don't know. I'm sorry, Supernatural fans, if I confused it. We went somewhere where there was vampires, and we saw the town, and then we drove away. But I think it's the wrong show I'm talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, my wife is also a Vampire Diaries fan too.
Okay,
So
okay.
bigger Supernatural fan, but she was all into that when it came out as well. So
Yeah.
I got her into Supernatural, but I left Supernatural like following that after like season 3. I don't know, it just kind of got not my thing anymore. It was darker in those first couple seasons, and then it's kind of I don't know. So I was like, I'm good. And then she followed it and kept on with it and like really loved it. So
Yeah, I have really bad ADD with any sort of series that's you have to wait for the next episode to come out. Like for some reason, even with like amazing things like Breaking Bad or Ozark, I'm always like the season behind trying to play catch up. Or there's a point where I heard that's good. I want to invest the time into it, but then sometimes I won't even realize that the show is already over or the season. So when I go to talk to people, they'll be laughing at me. I remember when there was a Breaking Bad final party or finale party at this friend's house, and I was like, I would love to come, but I don't know anything about the show. And they're like, well, you should binge the show. It's great. You should invest your time. And I came in and I was like naming stuff that happened like the first season. They're like laughing at me because the season has got so much more violent and so big. And I'm like, oh man, Hugo character, gosh, is he dark? This is before Gus came along. And it's just funny when people know huge pop culture references about shows, and I'm late to the game. Like I sound like an old man who like turned on a TV for the first time. But that's the curse of being a writer. Like there's times where I'm writing and reading and writing and reading, and like months will pass and I won't know what's going on with things with the Super Bowl or normal parts of society or goofy things in politics. I'm kind of detached from that, and which is good because I'm not influenced easily by it, or my decisions aren't influenced by it. But when I see people get mad and they'll be like, Taylor Swift did this, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on right now. But I think it's better to remain that way too.
Yeah.
Like, I just read this old book from the 70s and watched an old movie from the 70s, and like that's where I stay. And I'm kind of in that loner kind of mindset where my man cave turns into an extension of my brain with weird Ouija boards and occult stuff I put on my wall, and all of it's influence to keep me writing. But if we go somewhere, like my wife wanted to go for nachos last week, and we went to a sports bar, and I didn't know what was going on. Like I didn't know there was people screaming at the television, and I didn't know it was the playoffs. I'm that detached. And she's watching it, and she's like, oh wow, this so and so did a play, and she was able to follow along. And I quoted Steve Buscemi from the movie Mr. Deeds, and I go, football. I thought we were watching Scooby Doo. I didn't. I mean, I knew it was going on, but I wasn't aware of what team was versus who, and that kind of made me kind of a weirdo, which is fine. But I think that's why I'm able to produce a lot of work if I kind of stay detached. Because if you do invest a lot into certain shows, I know people who are they obsessively binge. I just don't. I don't have that time. Like I'm thinking, man, this is making me think about the story I have. So that's why sometimes I just hole up in my room and shut the door, and then I'm an insomniac on top of that. So sometimes it'll be 2 a.m. and I'll be still writing. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta get up in 4 hours, and that doesn't happen all the time. I'm not that lucky. I wish it did, but there's
Hmm.
chunks of time where I'll just write and write and write and write and write, and I'm like, oh, let me reread this really quick, or let me run this through Grammarly, and which is an editing software program. And then I
Oh yeah, I
realized,
use that too.
no, it's a lifesaver, and it saves on money
Yeah,
for
yeah,
a lot of editors. But
yeah.
the being an insomniac and having ADD work together very well for writing. But yeah, that's why I was able to. I know you saw those two small short stories that I was able to put out in the past, the past month, and both of them were, and I'm proud to say they were rejected stories. One of them was supposed to be for a public domain uh, childhood story character, so I picked Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and I submitted this to this book, or these people were going to write this book to put this book together, and they said the rules are it has to be public domain, childhood characters like these. And I was like, you know what, Alice in Wonderland is really cool. That's a fever dream. It's kind of a Hollow Earth story. I'm going to make her as a grown-up character and just implement these ideas that I have of some sort of occult ties with a portal in her house. And they liked it, and they said, "This is good. We're sorry though. We are only taking three anyway." Anyways, so that's it. And I was like, you know what? I'm
Hmm.
not going to brood, and I am a brooder, but I'm not going to brood over this and sulk. I'm just going to publish it on my own and put it through my own imprint, which is Insomniac Cat Publications, and I published it, and I did a physical copy, which is very small. And then right after that, I was writing something else. I had my wonderful in-laws were staying with us for a short time, and they were here with their
Hmm.
dog. So it kind of forced me into the man cave, and they were great. But I loved that. I'm like, hey everybody, have a good night. After I got done with my run, and I come in here and I'd write, and I produced a second book, which is called Witch Hypnosis, which is a story that got rejected, but it went through 2 rounds. The first round, they were like, hey, this is what we're looking for, awesome. And then a couple of days later, and they were like, okay, you're not going to make the final cut. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to publish this too. And so now I have two more things on the table for the next couple signings that are coming up, and I'm pretty excited about that. Their covers look sick, and
Yeah, I do like the covers. I saw those.
yeah, there's a English artist or a guy who's really good at Photoshop, and I found his website, and I've been eyeing up those covers for a while. And so when I got rejected, I was like, these covers are so good. I think they'll help sell the story. And I had a really good day with a free download that I had put a couple weeks, I think it was 2 weeks ago, for Witch Hypnosis. It hit like a 1,400 download on Kindle, which then
Nice.
catapults you to like number one as like I think it was like a cult short stories for the
Hmm.
day. And I'm like, I didn't expect to hit that level from a rejected story. So in a way, I'm happy to have had the rejection, because turning around positive and then seeing a good uptick in your sales is obviously good. But it was a good ego boost as well, instead of walking around with a cloud over my head thinking, as a writer, what did I do wrong? And which happens to everybody.
Hmm. No, that's really killer. I've been seeing the posts and stuff and how well it's doing, and that's going to be on my list of stuff to read too. I'm just right now I'm kind of drowning in books. I got way too many to read on my list right now, so I'm working my
Yeah.
way down. But I'm eventually going to get to those, and once I do, I'm really looking forward to checking them out and stuff. Right now I'm trying to finish up the Eugene S. Robinson from the band Oxbow. He's got like a biography out right now, which is really fucking good. I'm almost done with that because I was trying to juggle two books at once, and I'm just
Mhm.
like concentrating on one right now because yeah, really good book, and I'm trying to finish that up, and I'm working my way
So
down
you
the
said
list of
the
things.
guy
So
from Oxbow.
yeah, the lead singer of Oxbow, which
Okay.
is one of my favorite bands, Eugene S. Robinson. He's also been on this podcast before talking horror with me. So
Nice, nice.
yeah. But that's cool that you can self-publish and stuff now. Like you have more power, I guess, as like a writer to get your stuff out there than you probably would have had, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I would think.
Yeah, and especially with how quick it is in Kindle. I believe they're called Kindle Create, or maybe they're Author Central. I'm not sure what the public name is, but when I upload stuff, you'll get the proof like the next morning that whatever, there somebody actually reads it, or they have a robot that reads it. and they'll be like, this fits our approval, and then they launch it, and then it's live as a Kindle, and then I work with the program that they have and upload the artwork, and then you order copies, and it's like crazy because I have a friend on the other side of the country who orders my stuff, and they get copies. Like, it's just different if they were to buy it from like a small press, and I 1,000% support small press, but it's crazy if somebody's in California and they order my book and then they get it 2 days later, like, and it's not from my house, like I'm not putting it in an envelope. So
Mhm.
there's fortunately power to having something like Amazon that exists for independent people, but it's kind of like Bandcamp in the same way, where if you recorded a record, would you shop around for a record label or a smaller record label, or could you just put it online right now and hope that somebody recognizes it, and then you could be picked up for something that you'd be more comfortable with? And that's where I'm at right now, where I'm pushing the indie stuff really hard. And at the end of the year, I have this idea, and it's kind of because of the Alice in Wonderland story that I wrote. It was a lot easier to write um, a story that wasn't R-rated horror, but was like soft PG. Like, there was maybe some thematic elements that could have been considered scary for children, but for having a general audience's book, it was fun to have bickering between Alice from Alice in Wonderland, a duck and a rabbit and a mouse, like bickering on how to solve this problem. And I'm like, you know what? I'm wondering if it's because I like writing dialogue, but when you write horror, you're always trying to, maybe this isn't a word, but you're trying to out horror the next writer. Like, you want to out scare the previous thing that the last thing you read that influenced you. I'm kind of like, you know what? I want to have a twist here or do this, and everything's been done before, and I don't
Mhm.
bring anything new to the table. So if I maybe because I stuck my nose into another genre and having, I don't want to call it cozy horror, but it's a lot safer. So I started thinking of having a child's story of a witch being at the end, and these children go to meet this witch and still have the thematic elements of a horror theme with like a curse, or like the kids are cursed. And I'm thinking about shopping something around at the end of the year. I'm working on something now, and part of it's inspired by those covers from that guy from England who I bought the two recent covers. When I look at that influences me. I'm thinking I could see the witch doing this, and I could see the kids being scared of the witch doing that, and push the witchcraft elements. And I've always liked writing about supernatural witch stuff, because you could kind of make your own rules. Where if a serial killer or a Michael Myers type character or a slasher, you're just really just repeating the same scene of just cannon fodder of people walking into a room and getting stabbed or escaping, and then going to the next house or the next town, and did he make it there or find me? And I love slashers from the 80s, but they kind of become similar aside from whatever good gore effects that they have, or whatever good score it has, or if you really like a character in them. I think slashers they kind of get redundant to a point. So when I read about witchy stuff or occult stuff, you could be like, oh, this person said a spell and drew a circle on the wall, and they stepped into it, went to another dimension. That to me is cool, because you kind of write your own rules at that point. And I've had those themes go through all of my books, where there's something witchy or incantation, like, and just saying those words too are kind of
Mhm.
unsettling. You'd be like, I think there's a witch looking at me through the window, or I said these words and didn't realize, that everything changed around me. And those are like unsettling words. Where one night I was writing a short story, and I don't know how I thought of this, but I thought, because the blinds were open, that somebody was, this is just me at 2 o'clock in the morning, was
Mhm.
looking at me through the window over the fence in the other yard. And it wasn't. It was probably like a tree or something. But when I was thinking about the story, and I thought that at the same time, I got like the hair raised up on the back of my neck, and I got freaked out. And I thought of like somebody coming home and having like a cult follow this person, and then she thinks somebody is staring at her, and she goes to check it out, and there isn't, but then there's another person staring at her from another point. And that stuff where you have like a Rosemary's Baby type setting, where you have, are people are people really doing something to me, or is this in my head? That to me is more unsettling than having a guy with like a jumpsuit and a mask chase after you, because then at that point, I call them unlimited damage movies, where the Mario Brothers star, where somebody jumps up and they grab the Mario star, or Mario grabs the star. You could do whatever you
Mhm.
want to Mario; he's not going to get hurt. And those movies are kind of like that, where you crowbar Michael Myers and you burn him and shoot him and run him over the car. He's going to get up, because there's still 20 minents left of the movie. Or
Right.
like a cult, you're kind of like, that what is this cult doing? What are they after? They're gonna steal me, eat me, impregnate me, put me on a ship, put me underground. Like what's so I've always gravitated to those kind of things, like cult movies, like Messiah of Evil, or one movie that kind of deals with like a gaslighting, like Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Like you wonder like what is actually happening in the character's head, and you're following the character, or is she really right, or is the character really right, and the whole town is really a cult or some sort of like hive mind going on where they're all doing something. That stuff really, really, really freaks me out. So I like to write about stuff like that versus the traditional stab and run kind of things.
No, dude, I'm totally down with that. I'm a big occult fan. One of my favorite authors right now is Adam Neville, and I think he fucking nails that whole occult feeling down, especially with The Ritual, which I originally saw the Netflix the movie based off the book The Ritual, which I liked. I thought it was good,
Yeah.
but the novel is like 20 times better, especially with all the
Really?
black metal elements and stuff. Yeah, so good.
I want to check that out. When my wife and I saw The Ritual when it came out, and I don't know if you could see the behind my head, but there's some bones and skulls back there, and I have like above me there's bones, and they're real. They're not like I think behind me one of them is like a spray painted one that I got at like a store, but I have like a goat skull above my head and deer skulls. My wife said one of the most flattering things that anybody's ever said to me when we watched The Ritual and they went into the cabin. She said, "This looks like your room." I said, "That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said." And she's like, I don't get any ideas though to put like a throne with some sort of like mummified deer skull corpse in here. I'm like, that is a good idea to have, because sometimes somebody wants to watch those movies with you, so it's good to have a mummified creature hang out.
Yeah, that totally fits the whole Ritual aesthetic or whatever. But yeah, if you dig that movie, man, like I said, I think the book is 20 times better. Like
I
you should
definitely want to check it out. And
it
I know who
Yeah.
he is, but I've never read anything by him, so I want to check him out.
Yeah, another good book by him too is The Reddening. That one's really good. But anything by Adam Neville you can't go wrong with. So, and
Okay.
I think both your styles would definitely, I think you can definitely appreciate what he's doing there.
Cool.
So, how did you get started with writing? Like, what was your motivations and inspirations and stuff like that?
Years ago, I bought a camera after 28 Days Later came out, and Danny Boyle had used this cheap camera called a Canon XL1S, which was shooting on DV tape. It was like the independent filmmaker's dream camera because it wasn't that expensive. I think when they came out, they were like $1,000, and they obviously went down, and now everything's digital. It's not digital video, but they were DV tape videos. You could buy one of those, and you could start shooting on your own. And then what you do with the tape is you'd upload the tape to essentially like a tape recorder, and that digital media would be transferred to your computer, and you could start making short films. And that was like an obsession for a couple of years. And I wrote them, and then I directed them, and nobody was making money. I was putting my own money into it, and I submitted them to festivals, and I got zero attention. I just put them up on YouTube. I don't even have the YouTube login for that page anymore, but I got an IMDb page out of that and worked with some amazing people. And then I started thinking, what if I just wrote books and not movies? Because so much time and effort went into finding a place to shoot and trying to shoot. And there's things that I never thought of before. If you try to shoot people do dialogue, you have to worry about a car going by in the background or a plane going by in the background. I'm like, man, this is tough. You really need a lot of money to do a short film well.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time we were shooting still on DV tape, and somebody made a joke. We had stopped at a drugstore to get something to drink, and they said that there was a camera behind the counter at the drugstore that was better quality than the one that I was shooting on, even though I had a good lens. And I thought a lot about how much time and energy went into that. And I'm like, I could probably just write like scripts or something. And then as I started doing that, the world changed with independent publishing, where you could just have a well-edited book with a decent cover and put it on Kindle. And there are other formats. You could go through Ingram Spark, you could go draft the digital. And then there's certain levels of how you want to handle that. Do you want to print the book and go to shows and sign books and meet people and use your personality and social media to push your book further? Or you can just put a Kindle book out there and just go back to your 9 to 5 and say, oh yeah, I wrote a book. It's kind of like a demo tape, and you can push it as hard as possible, make it look as clean as possible. And then, I obviously met you through the convention at Spooky Empire, and then I did a podcast there with some guy. So there's amazing opportunities of buying a table and selling books. And I think it's a lot easier to sit at home on a laptop and still have the same passion, but work on it from here. Plus, I work a lot, and if just being part of something, a group I belong to called the Horror Writers Association, and it's a national, or I think it's actually international group of horror authors, and that the group in Florida, we sometimes will get lucky and we'll get the Horror Writers Association to purchase a table. They did that Spooky, and sometimes at smaller venues. I think there's a convention called, I think it's the Frightmare Fest or the St. Pete. It's in St. Petersburg coming up. I'm going to put these all on my website for upcoming. I have a couple signings coming up. I'm going to be at the Living Dead Con in Pittsburgh, the George Romero one, and I'm have all the new book on the table in June. But when I was able to write at home, it was still applying a lot of work, but you're not getting in a car with a location scout trying to find some place to shoot, or you're not borrowing somebody's house to make it look like you have a bigger budget, or you're not, doing all this running around after work with doing a short film. So writing it, my brain's always going to do something, and I don't know. And then meeting new people who are writers, I don't know, it pushes you further. Like, I went to college years ago. This is going back in the 90s. And I went for painting illustration, and there was a professor there who was pretty tough, and he was really cut and dry. And he said, I could tell you who's going to be flipping burgers when they graduate, and I could tell you who's still going to be painting. And he goes, if you're going to be painting, even if you're done with college, you need to hang out with painters, because if you don't, you're going to stop painting. He goes, you'll say, oh, I have a project I'm working on, and 8 months will go by, and you're not going to do it. And it was harsh, but it was true. So hanging out with other writers pushes me to write more. In the Horror Writers Association, the guys at the booth, and the one young lady that was there, and Derek Cavagnano and Douglas Ford, those three write a lot. And Derek's releasing a book soon. Doug just released a book. I think Stephanie just got something published with like a gore horror author by the name of Judith Sonnet. So they're always pushing to do something like every couple months, and that inspires me too, because I'll be like, oh wow, you're doing something. What am I working on? And it makes me feel better, because I just released a book in September called A Thin Veil of the Cosmos, and I was gonna just take a break. I was like, my brain is exhausted. I'm just gonna take a couple months off and just get caught up on movies and the books I want to read. But all of a sudden, I'm writing another story. And I think it's because of hanging out with other writers that I was able to do that. Where years ago, when I was doing the short films, it was just me. It was just weird stuff that would go through my head because I was watching David Lynch, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have some bizarre dialogue and just have some put them together, and there's a cryptic meaning in there somewhere. So thankfully, I'm still able to produce work, and I think because of the way the world is with Amazon and Kindle and Draft the Digital and Ingram Spark, people can just work from their home and just shop around their stories and still get published. And by also the books look good, and I'm happy with the way they look. And the book that you purchased, I'm happy with that. When you walk away, I'm like, looks solid enough to be in a store where if buy, they would be like, oh, okay, this is not some guy put this together with a paper bag and a bunch of old paper. But yeah, so that's writing. I don't think would have been as successful. I don't think if our technology wouldn't have been up to date, I'd probably be just shopping around like years ago. The normal way to do it would be. And I'm wondering now if I should stay independent, because I'm still able to produce so much and I do a lot of covers as well. Like I do a lot of different covers of the books, or I'll do like a variant, or I'll have like the hardcovers this color, but I'll have the paperback this color. And I think if I did that with the publishing company, they probably want to kill me. They'd probably be like, they're like, listen, man, we're only going to do one cover, and we're not going to do any variants, and it'll be out by the end of the year. Where I'm like, could you hear my cat crying, by the way? My cat's beneath me, and she's meowing.
I cannot. No, I cannot hear her, no.
All right, I want to make sure that she's not. I mean, she can be part of the podcast, but I want to make sure
of course.
if your peeps are listening, they'll be like, was that guy's stomach growling, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I can't hear it, so we'll see if it comes out during the editing stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't hear nothing.
Okay.
But yeah, like you're saying, feeding off of like-minded people that are doing what you're doing is a huge thing, especially even for me, like with the podcast and everything, because I'm in with the whole group of awesome podcasters. We're the horsemen of the podcast apocalypse is what we call ourselves. And
Okay.
we all have different podcasts on different things. We got horror podcasts, we have metal podcasts, we have occult podcasts. We're all in this group
Nice.
together, and we all feed off each other. We all help each other. We all share each other's stuff. And that right there just like really drives me making more content and stuff. So I totally see how, being in like a writers group like that can totally like drive and motivate you to, keep moving forward. I think that's really cool.
Right. I saw you post other podcasts. So that's those. I wasn't sure if those were ones that you were attached to, or you're just promoting just one of your friends' podcasts. So you do other ones on top of this as well?
Well, we sometimes do each other's podcasts, but we promote we promote all the independent podcasts that are under the Horsemen of the Podcast Apocalypse. So,
Okay.
if we see one I post for, that's like part of the Horsemen. So we always like try to promote for each other and everything like that. So they're all under that umbrella, the Horsemen of the Podcast Apocalypse.
Okay. Okay.
And I send you a message to or a link with everybody's podcast because I mean we have really cool horror podcasts, really great metal podcasts. Like we got everything covered. Whatever like needs you need, we have it covered. So
That's awesome. All those themes are great too. I mean, that's stuff I could listen to forever. That's awesome.
yeah, I mean that's my week is already rounded out with all my friends' podcasts. Like all right, and listen to this on Monday, and then Tuesday. Like it's like you're good for the whole week. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. My friend Sam has that Shuttle the podcast, and I haven't seen him like in I don't know maybe a year and a half. I think we saw Converge and play last year in Tampa, and I haven't seen him in a while. But I've done his podcast twice since then, and he's just beaming about it and how it just gives you something to do, look forward to, talk to, hang out, find the next person to put on there and watch movies. And I'm like, man, that's just I want to do one, but if I did, because of the way that I am, I would have to be a solo thing. I had this goofy idea where I hate TikTok, but I was thinking about doing like a 1 minute, and I talk very fast, doing like a 1 minute TikTok of a 70s horror movie and call it like the Micheal Thomas 70s horror movie podcast, even though it'd be on TikTok, and just record myself, do one take and hold a DVD cover or the DVD case and just go off about why I liked the movie The Sentinel or why I liked the movie, something from the 70s where people don't, not your top tier stuff. Everybody knows the top tier stuff, but talk about
Right.
the underground stuff just to get, more attention towards me being an author without saying, oh, by the way, buy my book, because that gets old. And I don't want to just be like every time I go on social media, be like, I have a book. Did you not know? And I don't think anybody, even some of the readers, wake up and they're like, oh, I wonder what Micheal Thomas or Thomas Micheal Thomas wrote today. I think if they just see free book, cool cover, click, and then they see my face at a show. I don't know if I even have a fan base enough for anybody to make an association, but if I were to do something horror related or some sort of horror content outside of being a writer, that could be another avenue. And at the same time, I mean, I could talk 70s horror all day. That's a lot of fun.
You should definitely do that. I've recently got onto TikTok, which I never wanted to fuck with at all. The reason I'm on there, I just do it to send people over to the podcast. So the only thing I post are like clips from like weird horror movies. I'll post clips from my podcast on like a minute or a minute and a half clips. I do that kind of stuff. But what you're saying there, I've seen people do that with like more popular movies. And I mean, they get like thousands and thousands of likes and all. Like that's a really good idea you should look into.
That's encouraging, because I'm such an old man about it. Like I remember there was this one Rick and Morty episode where I think he bought a shop and he was uncursing the items from the devil's shop across the street.
Oh yeah.
Don't curse. And he was all right, everybody on board, and he just lit everything on fire and walked out. Walked out of the shop. I think that would happen to me. Like if I did it and I didn't get any feedback being like, oh man, wow, this guy really likes that French director Gene Roland films. I want to watch Shiver the Vampire now, and if I didn't get anything like that, I'd be like, if I get on board, but it's weird though. At the same time, I met you and you're into the same stuff. So I know there's human beings out there that have the same weird taste as I do.
Oh yeah, there totally is. But yeah, no, definitely. There's a lot of us out there. We're just, you got to find us. And
Yeah.
another thing that I like to do, like on Fridays, I give my like Friday night movie recommendations, and I always try to pick some weird shit, like or something from back in like the '90s that was popular at the time, but people don't really know it nowadays, or just some oddball shit, and that gets a lot of like reactions and stuff. So that's pretty
Yeah, I,
cool. And
I
I get,
appreciate those. Those are really cool. And I try to do this because my wife always falls asleep early on like a Friday night because we both work and we go out to dinner and we come home on Friday night and that's our date night. And she's like, "Do you want to watch a movie?" And you're like, "Yeah." And she usually conks out pretty early. So I'm kind of like, "What movie am I gonna watch?" So I had like a run where I was doing anything World War II related, and then I got into a Tarantino kick, and I get in these kicks, but it's cool to have somebody recommend something because I might own it or I might have heard of it and have not watched or have not seen it, and it gives me I don't know, it's a cool card to throw on the table. I'm like, oh shit, I did know about that and I want to watch this, or I'm glad you're into it. I could talk to you about it the next time, or sometimes I'll post a clip. I think I posted a few clips recently and you already knew those movies and you're like, oh, that's awesome. I own that on Blu-ray, which is fun
yeah.
if you run into someone like us and you're kind of like, oh yeah, I used to have that on DVD and then I had to upgrade to the 4K because you like Russ Meyer's Super Vixens as well, or some bizarre out there film.
Yeah, dude. I was on that whole kick of collecting VHS, like newer VHS. I mean, yeah, newer VHSs of newer films coming out, and I'm still on that kick, but I've died down a little bit. I was going pretty crazy with it because there's a company I follow and I'm friends with, Witter Entertainment slash Broke Horror Fan. They do all these like releases of these new films on VHS,
Mhm.
and it's really cool. Like I got like this giant clam box version of Mandy that I had to fight for to
Wow.
get because it sold out in 30 minutes when it went up. But I
Wow.
got one because it's my favorite movie, so I had to get that shit. And I. But
That's
anyways, they do all these releases on VHS, and I just think it's so fucking cool. And it's the artwork and the whole nostalgia thing, and just having that big piece of physical media, because big ass clam box fucking VHS tape is so cool.
that's awesome. I just saw somebody read, and it's probably not sanctioned by the company, but they did a VHS of The Witch, the 2015 movie by I think it's Robert Eggers is the
Hmm.
director. They did some new artwork for it. I don't even think it was even a scene from the movie. They had somebody do it, and I'm like, this is insane. As for a VHS, I'm like, I don't know how that happens or how somebody makes the VHS if they contact the company and get permission, or they just do it until they just get told not to do it. Because I follow a couple Instagram pages where a guy was releasing like current stuff, and then it would just get shut down. He goes, I can't do anything anymore, and then he put it back up again. A couple weeks later, I'd see him still doing stuff.
I dig that. I just love the whole aesthetic of VHS and stuff,
They're
and
amazing.
that's what I grew up on. That's my thing. And just having
Yeah.
that again is so cool.
Somebody bought me as a gift the thing still wrapped on VHS, and they left it on my table at
Oh,
work. I almost fainted. Like I didn't. I thought I had
shit.
everything. Like I have a lot of cool shit, and I tell my wife often that I don't need any more shit. I was like, I have enough. As long as I'm healthy, and we have each other, and we have our house. I don't need anything else. Like I could take half my. If she could come into my room and take half my stuff and give it away, I probably wouldn't know. But when somebody drops off a VHS wrapped of pretty much any movie, you're already like, oh, I didn't know I needed this in my life, but I saw the
Mm.
VHS the thing. I might have fainted. I don't know. I was pretty excited when I saw it, and
No, that's a hell of a score. Holy shit.
yeah. I don't think I have any wrapped VHS. I do have some weird ones. Years and years ago, this old punk rocker guy heard that I had a Vespa scooter that didn't run anymore, and he's like, "Hey, would you consider selling that?" And I was like, "Sure." And he's like, "I don't have a lot of dough." He goes, "But I know you like horror movies. Would you consider trading VHS for the scooter?" I was like, "That's a deal," because I wasn't using it. And so
Hmm.
he gave me maybe 25, maybe 30 VHS, and they're like really oddball ones, like Horror Express, and The Screaming Starts, like a lot of like European VHS. And I'm like, this is a damn deal. I think I made out better on the deal than he did. He did get, but there was like Creep Show too, some really really cool shit. It wasn't like you're the one you go to Goodwill and you see VHS there, but that's stuff that you know you've seen 1,000 times and everybody has, and
Right.
you really do get a good find. But when I have like like Haunted Honeymoon on VHS. I'm like, damn it, I didn't know I needed this until I saw it today. But yeah, it does. VHS are a lot of fun.
Yeah, they are. And yeah, you should definitely check out Witter Entertainment like whenever you can, just to see what they got. And I think they have a few. I didn't have a few like Terrifier VHSs up still. That shit
Really?
sells out super fast when they get them up there. Yeah, and that's a really good one to have.
Okay.
Yeah, I got Willy's Wonderland. I really enjoyed that movie. A lot of people hate it. I thought it was great. I got a big giant big box version of that on VHS from them. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Color Out of Space too. They did a Color Out of Space clamp box edition. That shit is so badass. To me, that's one of the best Lovecraft movies to ever come out, or Lovecraft adaptations to come out.
That's with Cage, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I haven't seen that. I have not seen that.
You definitely need to see that. That was done by Richard Stanley.
Okay.
And, Richard Stanley was one of the. I think he was my first ever guest on the podcast, man.
Really?
And, yeah, this was years ago. Well, going on probably 2 or 3 years. Whenever I started this, but this event, when I first started this out, I was just writing reviews and watching screeners and writing reviews on horrorwolf666.com, the website. And then I was like, I sent him something. I was going to do a written interview with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he like said, how about we do a audio interview on like Skype or something? I'm like, I had to think about it for a while. I'm like, that's intimidating.
Yeah. That's really cool.
I told my wife, I'm like, I think I'm going to do this. And, I did it and stuff and kind of started the ball rolling. But unfortunately, Richard Stanley got in some heat with some stuff a couple of years ago after and had to take the episode down.
Oh, really?
Which
I
was
didn't know that.
Unfortunate. Yeah. It was like one of my first ones and stuff. But I don't know. I think his situation got better now, like in a court of law or something. I'm not 100% sure on that, but he was attached to do like a whole trilogy of Lovecraft stuff. Like I think the next film coming up was going to be Dunwich Horror. And yeah, he was attached to do all that, and this stuff happened, and yeah, he's kind of it ain't gonna be happening.
Wow, I love the '70s Dunwich Horror with was it Dean Stockwell? That's great. I think in Midnight Movies put that out or released that, but that's a great movie. It's weird
Super
how
psychedelic.
Oh my God, yeah. It's weird how things change, like in the public eye of how people view things. Like Kevin Spacey got in trouble, and then now I got an email because I subscribe to a lot of conventions, horror conventions, to see what's going on in the horror world, and I guess he's signing up in the Carolinas now.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think it's like this month in February. So I guess I don't know if that's trying to get in the good graces of the public, but I knew somebody. They were like, I refuse to watch Seven now. And I'm like, well, you could choose to watch whatever you want, but he was the villain in there. So
yeah. He's the monster playing a monster, so it works out. I don't. Yeah, Kevin Spacey.
There's my wife. She's a couple years younger than me, and I don't know if she just missed it, but we watched Seven recently, and she had seen it before, but she kind of forgot about it. And so we're watching it again, and I think that film just drips with atmosphere. Fincher that's a perfect '90s thriller.
Oh, yeah.
But her comment was, "I can't believe how cute Brad Pitt was." she didn't know, because I guess if there's a stretch of somebody just not in the face of society, we remember, especially Brad Pitt has done great films like Snatch, and there's amazing films he's done, Fight Club. But it's just funny to have somebody younger say, "Oh, I didn't realize that person was like really hot back then." That might be my favorite part. There's an 8-year difference between us of her saying something like that, where I could watch a movie where it was huge in our time. Like Seven was huge. 12 Monkeys was that's another great movie. And I've watched them so many times where I could be like, yeah, I could rewatch that. That's a fun time. And to see somebody's reactions to the same things, where they'll laugh at a certain point, and I love that, because I don't know, it's just in my brain that you almost assume that everybody else has seen it too. And that's like what happens to weird old jaded metal weightlifting cat owner guys who listen to black metal in horror movies. You always assume that everybody knows the same as you. So it's good when you post stuff too, to encourage you when you say, hey, check this movie out, because I could be like, shit, this looks good. This is the same thing I'm into. Or when I talk to people about horror movies, there's some people, they'll be like, what the hell are you talking about? And they just kind of like want to clean the slate and be like, I don't even know what you're referring to. And you have to think some kids were born in the 80s and they know the 90s, which is not the best decade for horror. And then they start to try to search for stuff and they don't know. They don't know, like we were like before Scream came out, the 90s was a lot different. You had like Dusk Till Dawn and you had like, Wishmaster, and you had like a lot of the sequels were ending at that point in time. So you have these one-off things like, John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. So there were good horror movies, but they weren't
hell yeah.
the $1 million gigantic blockbuster of the 80s, but it still existed for horror fans. And I think until you had stuff like maybe Audition show up, the Japanese film, everything became a Scream ripoff. And I'm kind of like, I did like the first one, but like I don't think it's the be all end all of slashers. Where I go into the and I say this a lot, but I go into the horror room on Reddit, or I think it's R Horror, and they think that's like that's the be all end all of films. Where so much where I could go in there and say, hey, what's everybody's favorite 70s occult horror film? And the response would be, oh, it's not 70s, but it's definitely Scream. There's just no, there's no concept of anything else aside from a masked person running around stabbing a person that happens to be really good looking with an MTV score. That's kind of like how that. And I guess it's good because it brings money to the genre. And I have nothing against anybody working in those films, but at the same time, when I get like an email from, I don't know, Severin Films, I'm like, what beautiful trash do I need to see that's been restored? Like there has to be something in here that I'm going to get out of this email. Like recently I found the movie The Devil's Reign.
Oh hell yeah, that's a good one.
Oh my god, that's so good. I've only seen it the past couple months, and I'm like, how have I not known it?
William Shatner's in it.
Oh my god, it's so good. And
that a quick fact on that, I don't know, you might already know this, but I think Anton LaVey had a lot to do with that film. So, well, I'm sorry, he didn't have a lot to do with that film. I don't think he did a lot of promotion for that film.
Okay.
And stuff, and he was actually in it. He was one of the masked guys at the end. Yeah. So I think he did some consulting on that one. I don't know if he was credited for it, but he did some consulting on there and stuff. So I think that's pretty interesting.
That is. It's very cool. I found something about the movie. I think it's THX 1138, and that the shaved head people in that movie, I guess, were part of some sort of like Southern California cult at the time. And I don't know if they needed to shave their heads for the movie or they just were like, you people over there with the shaved heads who are all dressed the same, come follow me. I'm going to bring you on this movie. But it wasn't hard for them to be found. And I don't know if it's because South California is just not really a religious state. Where I'm from the Northeast, so there's a lot of religion up there. Or if you go to the other end, diagonally down to the other part of the country, they're kind of like, no, that's why we join cults, because we don't do the religion thing down here. So they'll follow a guru somewhere, and end up having something like the Heaven's Gate cult just happen.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, Heaven's Gate cult, that's some wild stuff. But one of my favorite bands is not metal, because I listen to a lot of stuff that isn't metal as well, is Drab Majesty, and a lot of their stuff is like revolved around the Heaven's Gate cult and everything. So that's really cool. Yeah.
What's interesting about Heaven's Gate, and I don't want to ever condone anybody hurting themselves, but what's interesting about that cult is that Marshall Applewhite, he didn't do the things that normal cult leaders do. He didn't take their money, and he didn't sleep with people from the cult. That usually is, those two usually come into play when the guy gets to power. He's like, oh, by the way, the guy is going to proclaim that he's some sort of messianic figure and then sleep with people and or take all their money. And Marshall Applewhite was kind of like, well, no, I kind of believe in this, and let's just get rid of our earthly bodies and go follow that comet. And they're like, sure, let's do it. And then they did it at their own will and their own accord. And once again, I don't want to see anybody hurt themselves, but there was nothing like a Jim Jones thing where people were forced to do something by gunpoint. It was something that they just believed in. And 100 years from now, will somebody look at that and say, well, that was what they believed? We're kind of like, what the hell just happened out there? I mean, well, not now, but I mean, what was that, 97, I think, when that happened. And I remember when the news reports came out, it was people dressed up like Spock, had plastic bags over their heads. And then the news came out and you started to piece everything together with Marshall Applewhite, and they found the tapes and stuff. And it's really bizarre. And I used to read about that a lot, and I had to kind of separate myself from it, because you get so obsessed about what these charismatic leaders do. It's fascinating that, I mean, it happens in politics now too, but it's crazy if you could say words to people and it just shows how people want to be accepted, and it's very sad. They want acceptance so much that they'll just go that far. And and like I where you see people drive here down here in Florida with political flags. I'm not that passionate about anything at all.
No.
I like I'd rather I mean, if I was passionate about anything, I'd have a flag that says I love my cat, like on the back
Yeah,
on my car.
exactly. Yeah, I have two of those bad boys on the car.
And that's like the heart of every metal person. And I told my wife last night, I was like, I'm doing Brandon's podcast tomorrow. She's like, all right, well, I'm gonna go shopping. And I was like, okay, cool. And I said, it's just funny how I was like, weightlifting metalhead dudes who own cats and watch horror films are just gonna they're just gonna find each other in society and be either they're recording a demo together, they're at the gym, or they're watching horror films or doing a podcast. It's just gonna happen. And so it's pretty funny.
It is. It's great. Like that's the kind of like positivity we need. We don't need all these goddamn like cult followers and cult leaders and all and waving these stupid ass fucking flags. If people took that kind of energy they do for dumb shit like this, like their favorite
Yeah.
team, their favorite politician, and put that energy in like improving themselves and people
Yeah.
around them, I
Yeah.
mean, it'd be so much better. But no, they want to put all in a bunch of negative bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's scary because like um I don't know. I don't think that's, and people make fun of Florida. I know there's bands that tour here, and I'll talk to them, and they'll be like, well, the political climate's really weird here. I'm like, you're seeing what's on the news, though. It's still America. It's still a beautiful place. There's a lot of beautiful people in Florida, but the news wants to point the camera in the face of the hurricane or in the face of the angry politicians. Say, this is Florida. And I
Oh
don't buy
yeah.
it at all. I think there's beautiful beaches, even though I hide in my room most of the time, and there's a lot of beautiful people in the state, but it kind of gets overlooked with some of the circus sideshow stuff where they're kind of like, I'm like, oh, typical. Like you hear late night talk show hosts, they pick on Florida a lot. And I'm like, well, I don't agree actually with any of this that you're saying. I mean, it's funny. I mean, maybe it's a mildly entertaining joke, but I think, I don't know. I'm very fortunate to be down here to have amazing bands come tour here and having great horror cons come. Spooky might be one of the best cons in the country, Spooky Empire.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, definitely.
I'm thrilled to be down here, and I could see myself retiring here as an old man watching the Golden Girls with the same hair that I have now, but only white though, kind of like a Jim Jarmusch kind of thing.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, Florida's always been fine. I played Florida multiple times with the band, with Tripping the Mechanism and stuff, and we never
Okay.
had a bad experience down there. It's just it gets a little weird in the Panhandle, but that's okay. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I remember we were eating I was eating a steak omelet out of somebody's trailer that was slashed. Like, it was said it was a restaurant. There was a sign there, but it was a fucking trailer. And we walked in this place. They had all
Mm,
this Jesus stuff everywhere, like
mm.
everywhere, like Jesus this, like God hates you and all this kind of weird
Oh
stuff, like
wow.
super extreme. And
Yeah.
everybody just stopped and looked at us. I was like, oh boy, but I will say the food was fucking great.
I think I think there was a joke like that in one of the Harold Kumar movies where they were running through the forest away from like a bunch of like racist rednecks shooting at them. And Kumar
Hmm.
looks up, he's like, I know this is a bad time to bring this up, but these beans are great. And he was like eating out of a pot of beans. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, it was wild. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like some Texas chainsaw shit. And we needed food. And the place we were staying at, the hotel was in the middle of nowhere. It was
Oh
like,
no.
it was a regular hotel. Like it was a named hotel, like a branded one. And the only place to get food was from in this little area. And it was like a fucking house slash trailer that served
Wow.
food. It was bizarre as fuck. I'm like, what the hell is going on, man?
That is very horror movie because some of the criticisms against like horror movies like Wrong Turn or when it gets to I guess the term is the subgenre is called hillbilly horror.
Hmm.
Is these places don't exist because it's usually just going to be like some um, franchise larger gas station. I'm like, no, they do exist. You just have
It's
to be on the wrong
real.
road. You have to be.
Yeah.
There's this one place I have not seen it a second time. I know I did see it the first time. My aunt and I were driving from Pennsylvania to Florida, and we were on 301, and there's this connection where you go. I think you do 95 to 301 to get on my side, on the Gulf side, to go down 75. And I swear there was a house that had a bunch of mannequins in the front yard as you drove by. And she was like mortified. And I was like, listen, that is not the state. That's just a one off. That's just somebody just freaking people out because we were in the state maybe 5 minutes or something. But I've yet to see that. I don't know where it was. I should have got out and took a selfie because nobody's gonna believe me. But it was one time I'm like, if there was a power tool that was used to possibly chase somebody off their property, that probably like the highest percentile right there.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of weird things traveling with the band and stuff when we were together and everything. We played another Florida story. We played at Churchill's. You know where Churchill's is at? I think in Little Haiti. I don't know if you heard of this club. It's like a really like famous venue or whatever, like bar venue. And we're playing in Churchill's, and this was back when the Zika virus was going on, where the mosquitoes were carrying this crazy virus that could do all this weird shit to you. But we're playing in there, and they tell us, you got to about like 10, and you can't like venture out among the neighborhood because you're gonna be spraying. I'm like, okay.
Really?
So when you got out there, you saw these guys in these fucking full on chem suits and all spraying this fucking unknown substance all over the streets. Like It was total like sci-fi apocalyptic type horror shit. Yeah.
Like the crazies, man. That's
hazmat suits and everything.
Wow. That's pretty freaky. We were talking about my friends at work were talking about the crazies the other day, and there's this image that I saw when I was younger where the guys came into the kid's house or the family's house, and they were in hazmat suits, and they're stepping on the little green army guys as they were coming in to take the family. And that freaked me out. And George Romero did such a good job with that, because having guys dressed like that coming into a house and stepping on the army guys is just, I don't know, man. That just really, really, really was very unsettling. And because I used to play with army guys, and I was like a little green army guys, and I'm thinking,
me too.
Come in and just rip you out of a house. That's just, that's real intense scene.
That's kind of like the scene in E.T., even though E.T. is not a horror movie, of course, but the scene when they break in with the hazmat suits and all to try to capture E.T. That terrified me as a kid.
Yeah, that's another one that's very, very similar with that imagery.
And that's something you don't really hear much about E.T. no more. Like, it was huge back when we were young, but like I thought that was like an iconic movie, but nobody really talks about it.
It is weird. You're right. I remember seeing that movie. What you did back then was just go to the movies again. There weren't a lot of channels, and I remember seeing that just that summer. You just say, "What do you want to do?" Let's just go see E.T. And I was probably maybe 7 at the time, and I probably saw that 5-6 times that summer. And we go to the drive-in and you go out there with different cousins or whatever, and just watching this movie over and over again. Where now I don't know that I'd hate to say that kind of died out, like rewatching movies, unless you're choosing to do it, but I think because stuff was limited and your channels were limited and your movies were limited. Now there's so much which is great, because now I could get into foreign films and I could get into like obscure TV shows or old canceled TV shows or something. Like I'm a fan of I'm also a fan of 70s sitcoms. Like I love like The Odd Couple and Good Times and the Jeffersons, and some of those shows are just content wise you can never make those anymore.
Oh right, yeah, definitely.
But I love a lot of the 70s. I don't know what it is about that era, but something like it's something about the score that's done on like a violin or some sort of string section, and the graininess of film and like the rich browns just freaks me out. Even if the movie's not that good, there's just an unsettling feeling just by putting the movie in. Sometimes by the time I'm into the credits and I'm watching something, like, man, this is going to be freaky. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Tourist Trap.
Yes, Tourist Trap. What's his name from Gunsmoke, or the Rifleman? Rifleman.
Yes, yeah. Chuck Connors. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to watch USA Up All Night back in late 90s, the late 80s, early 90s. And I remember seeing the movie and didn't know what it was. I just forgot what it was called. And for years, I'm like, what was that movie with the lady driving away in the Jeep and they're zooming in and all of her friends are mannequins? And it just took me forever to find it. And one day somebody posted it. I think it was on the IMDb horror boards back when that was a thing. And they're like, how about this? I'm like, oh my God, I've been looking for this forever. And it's just such a bizarre film. And you couldn't even remake that now. It wouldn't even make sense. You're like, he's kind of a psychic who controls mannequins somehow.
Right.
But very cool film. But anything 70s like that. And the weirder it is, like there's another movie I really like. Paul Bartel, the director, has done a movie called Private Parts, not to be confused with Howard Stern's Private Parts, where it was like a creepy San Francisco hotel and a runaway goes there and everybody's just batshit crazy. And I love those super creepy aesthetics, because like that stuff got greenlit back then because horror still made money. You're like, oh, let's just shoot a cheap movie in a hotel, let's shoot a cheap movie in a forest or in a cabin, and then some of them, permeate the ether, and we still talk about those films, and some of them just get forgotten. So that's why I was thinking about doing that TikTok 70s horror podcast where I could talk about those things, and hopefully some of those could come to light, because I know they've almost all of those have been restored to some degree by some of the great companies like Code Red or Blue Underground or Severin Films. Like they're always finding these gems, which were probably just sitting on a shelf somewhere. And they're like, you know what, let's do a 4K remaster of this. And then, I'd love to meet other horror fans like yourself who's like, hey man, do you like this really shitty film that's kind of good, but the cover looks awesome on it and it still looks great with the restoration, because some of those they're not the best, but I'll put them on and I'm like, oh my God, I remember watching this when I was like 15 on a Friday night with Gilbert Godfrey screaming in my face for USA Up All Night. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, that's good stuff, though. I remember watching Up All Night as well when I did have cable, which was only for a very limited amount of time as a kid. My parents did not have cable for us. Like, didn't want to afford, they weren't too cheap to get. It's like, yeah, it wasn't, in the budget. But we had cable like whenever like my granddad was there with us or an uncle or something, they'd buy cable and stuff, and for a limited amount of time, so I could actually watch some of this shit. And
Yeah.
if I couldn't watch it there, I'd watch it at my aunt's house. She had cable, but yeah, I remember like Monster Vision and stuff. And now,
Oh my God,
The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob, I watch that religiously and follow everything he does.
yeah. Thank God for him, because I think he's always shining the flashlight on some great stuff that once again, like, we might know about it, but there could be just like a generation of kids might not know, and they want to get into horror. They just might not know what's good or bad, or they don't have, and this is sad, that they don't have a video store they could go into to meet some kind of like Tarantino Jr. to say, oh, you like these films? You like these films? I've always known one of those guys at a video store, and he's like, oh, you like these crime films? You should check out, Suicide Kings if you like Pulp Fiction or something like that. And that's kind of gone unless you follow a blog or something, because IMDb horror boards was where I had just always was getting a river of knowledge, and then they canceled that. The IMDb horror boards came down, so now I just go on Reddit. And I don't really get a lot from Reddit. Reddit's just the same 1,000 kids talking about a couple of 90s slashers or something modern that I don't know about. Like I didn't know about a lot. I don't know about a lot of modern horror until it's just mentioned a lot. Like somebody was like, hey, you should check this out or check that out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of in the dark on that. And that's where I turned into a real old man. I'm like, oh, wait, they made one of those? I sound like an idiot, but I'm kind of out of the loop. Like somebody bought me a copy of Possessor, which I believe that
nice.
Cronenberg's son did that, and I did like.
Yes, great movie.
The one he did with Mia Farrow, which I really liked a lot. I can't remember what that was called though. That came out last year. But they were was Infinity Pool. Is that the name of it?
Oh yeah, Infinity Pool. Yes.
That was really, really good. But I didn't really know that David Cronenberg's kid was doing anything, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to get this Possessor movie, and I still have it unwrapped. It's still sitting right next to me. Like I had a stack
Possessor is so good. It's better than Infinity Pool, and I like Infinity Pool, but Possessor's better. Oh yeah, hell yeah.
I had this stack because I didn't know if we were doing a visual, so I had a stack of like DVDs that I bought and books I bought. Like it was not hard at all to talk to you, but if we were like looking for stuff to talk about, and I'm like, oh, I'll tell you what I bought recently, and it's always old stuff. Like I got this movie through Redemption Films called Black Magic Rights by Renato Poselli, and it's absolutely bananas 70s occult stuff, and I loved it so much that I bought another movie of his called Delirium that Blue Underground put out, but I thought I had seen Delirium before because I rated it in IMDb, and I didn't, because there's a Giallo film I think they came out in 81 also called Delirium, and I'm looking at this and I was like, this is not the movie that I've seen. There's two Deliriums. And then I bought a Blu-ray of The Witch, because that's just a really good movie. And I bought them.
Oh yeah, dude, yeah.
Lamora, a Child's Tale of the Supernatural, which is kind of like a weird adult fairy tale movie. I put up in Synapse Films. They're great. Synapse put out a lot of great stuff. But it's funny that I was thinking that we wouldn't have been able to have enough chatter between each other that I actually brought a pile of DVDs to talk about. And here we filled up like an hour and like 15 minutes already. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's good you did that though. I mean, that's still cool. And yeah, I recommend checking out Letterboxd if you're not a member of that already. It's free. You can do like a
Oh,
premium membership like on IMDb, but Letterboxd is really cool. And I'm on there. You can follow me on there. And once you follow me,
definitely.
then you can
I
follow
need
my
to do that.
followers.
I need to do that because my friend from the other podcast just said that last week. He's like, why don't you have one? He's like, this is silly. He's like, you're the guy who should have one of these. And then he asked me what my favorite Italian horror films were, and I sent him this huge list. And he's like, I'm calling it the Thomas Micheal Thomas Italian horror list. And I'm like, I need to make an account to just to I want to find out more. I know there's other 70s films that are good that I haven't seen, and I want to know what they are too and meet other people. So yeah, I definitely want to make an account this weekend. Follow you, follow him. That'd be great.
Yeah, it's the best. I still use my internet movie database to keep track of films because when I do my top 10 every year, I got to make sure I have my dates right and all that stuff. And I still use
Right.
that for reading facts and all that stuff. But I use my letterbox for like really finding like odd movies I didn't know about or some of the newer stuff that's out, like keeping track of that. So, and it's really good for that.
Okay. Yeah, that's not. I wish I watched more than 10 new films a year. I'm so bad. Like I didn't even see. I don't know if we even went to the theater once. We did go to the theater. It was to see the special edition of The Exorcist, and it came out
Oh,
in
nice.
October. And my wife's like, "What do you want for your birthday?" You know, I was like, "I have enough stuff. I don't need any stuff." I was like, "If you want to get me in, and then get me like a gift card from Grindhouse Video in Tennessee, like so I could just order stuff through that guy and support him." And she's like, "Well, we go see The Exorcist." And I was like, "That's it. That's all I need. I want to go see the restoration of the is it the 50th anniversary? I can't.
I think
Yeah, I guess it
so.
is. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Because I saw that in 2000, 2001. I guess it was 2000. I think it was the restored version with the spider walk in there.
Hmm.
And that's what got me into 70s horror movies. I think it was 2000. And I had seen the ones you're supposed to have seen, you know, the ones that made it, you know, like Halloween and stuff. But I had never went to a theater to see a 70s horror movie. And I walked in, I saw The Exorcist, and I'm like, just the score and the way that it looked and the muffled dialogue of, you know, the way the 70s were done. And I'm like, I think this might be the this might be the greatest decade of horror ever. And I felt that back then. So I kind of like dedicated just like a lot of just always searching to find something that was just gonna knock me out. And every couple months I'll find something. I'm like, oh my God, like I love the movie. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Alucarda, the Mexican horror film. It's
I know of it. I don't know if I've seen it though.
it's batshit crazy. It's like it's technically an exploitation film. Definitely a cult satanic vibe, where these just young girls are in a convent, and one of them just wants to explore darkness further, and they end up making some deal with the devil, who's a goat, and it just keeps on going crazier and crazier and crazier. It reminds me, in terms of how crazy the film gets, like the movie from 1981, Possession, the one with Isabella Johnny, and
Oh yeah, great movie.
it just gets crazier and crazier. And by the time you're at the end, you're like, I'm just along for the ride. I don't know what the hell's going on. It's kind of like one of those movies. So, and then I end up like rewatching them a lot, and I usually post a lot. And some people are kind of like, "Where the fuck do you find these movies?" Which is fun. That's always a fun thing to say. Or somebody there to have said to you is, "Where the fuck do you find these things?" And they're, you know, and that's where you find awesome people. Where I find awesome people like yourself, and so it's been really cool.
No, that's way cool, man. And speaking of like movies that kind of take you down a rabbit hole, there's one that came out, I want to say maybe 2015ish, maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you may have seen it already. It's called Baskin. Have you seen Baskin?
Oh, I love that movie. I just
Yeah.
watch it for the first time recently. Somebody had recommended that, and it was a it was somebody who knew my taste very well, and they were like, "How have you not seen this?" Which is great that they knew my taste that well. And I watched. I'm like, "Geez, man, they didn't even. There was no second act. It was just destroy the victims that walk into this creepy hell hotel. It was yeah, that was a really good movie. That was really good. They didn't even
Yeah, it
need the
was like
twist at the end where it kind of looped in the time. I was fine with the
no,
movie went there.
it was just a straight descent into hell. Like, it's like, all right, the cool. What is this, like a cop movie? When it first starts, you don't know what's really going on in the first act, and it's
Yeah.
just like, boom, straight to hell. Like,
Has
oh my.
has that director done anything else?
He did another movie. Damn it. hold on, I'm about to look this up on my phone as we talk here. He did another one that was actually pretty good. Wasn't as good as Baskin, but it was still
Okay.
pretty decent. I'm trying to think of the name right now. Let's see here. I'm about to pull him up. It was called Housewife, and Housewife was pretty good. It's got really shitty scores on Internet Movie Database, but usually they have pretty shitty scores on there. But it's called Housewife, and
Okay.
that one is streaming on Tubi for free. So I
Oh,
definitely
really?
say check that one out. Yeah, it's weird as fuck, but it's not as good as Baskin. It's still a
Okay.
good watch though.
I'm game if that director had something to do with it. Even if it's not as good, it's probably better than some of the other things out there that are new. I hate to be an old man and say that, but he seems to be that guy gets it. You know, the gore was sick in that.
Oh yeah, and some of like the main bad guy or whatever at the end. I guess you would call it bad. The main cult leader, or whatever,
Mm,
the old looking fellow. There was no makeup on that guy supposedly. That was how that guy looked in real life, and he
really?
found that person to play that role. Yeah. So
Wow.
that's all real, which is
I, I
yeah.
I hope I live long enough where I could just be spotted on the street and they'll say, "Hey, you look like you could play the role of a old creepy cult leader."
I get called a axe murderer sometimes, or yeah.
Oh,
So I know that feeling already. So
yeah, that's kind of a compliment, though. You know,
yeah,
you're
yeah, no, I
you're
take it.
you're
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
very you're a very nice person, but usually if from afar people think you might be threatening, and then as they get closer, it's very disarming when they find out you're very nice or a passionate person, or you're like really care about animals and your spouse. It's like, oh, okay, you're not as scary as you look. For
Yeah.
I have a natural resting bitch face. It's just the way that I look, and I've gotten in trouble taking family photos before. Where my grandfather, when I was younger, he's like, "You need to work on your attitude," and I was like, "I have a great attitude. What are you talking about?" But my pictures and my face, they just look like I'm angry all the time, and that's just I was probably thinking
Yep.
or tired or something. It just happens. It just comes with having I don't know that furrowed brow, the caveman brow, you know. So which maybe helps me when I'm running. Like the other night, I went for a long run, and I have nothing wrong with speaking. I don't want to speak ill of homeless people. I know they're in a certain part of society that we need to help, but
Right.
sometimes they'll play chicken with me when I'm running,
Hmm.
and they're not in this area where I live. But if I run over by the Target, I usually go for 4 milers, and there's usually one hanging out over there, and I'm running down the street, and they're all bundled up, and I'm usually in a sleeveless band T-shirt, and they'll see me, and I'm gonna get out of the way and step in the way at like the last minute. So I'm like, do I jump off into the grass? Do I stop? And I really don't want to stop at all. So I started running with mace late at night, and I wear a headlamp on my head. Um, and nothing's ever happened, but sometimes it could be concerning. So, but I think maybe because I look a little bit on the angrier side, maybe in a the sleeveless Texas Chainsaw Massacre shirt might spare me from being chased. Maybe.
That's a good weapon of choice there. A Texas Chainsaw shirt and some mace. I
Yeah,
approve of that. Yeah, you
yeah,
never want to
yeah,
be too safe like with anything. I always carry a knife on me and stuff. I never ever want to have to use a knife, but I
yeah.
always have one on me just in case. You never know. I mean,
You might want to cut an apple or some cheese, and
yeah.
somebody's like, "Hey, Brandon, I got an apple and cheese." I'm like, "Guess what? I have a knife. I got in here."
Yeah, our my house is full of knives. I was on a collecting spree for a while. I'm like, oh, I want this knife. Oh, this one looks cool. And like, I finally slowed down on that. I'm like, all right, I got enough knives. I got a knife in every room, and
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah, I'm crazy. I like knives. Knives are cool. Old
Yeah.
school. Like, yeah. I have a I think they call it caraba, I believe. It's the Filipino like fighting knife, but it's actually made. It was for harvesting crops and stuff, but it turned into
Okay.
like a fighting knife. It's one with a curved blade.
All
Looks like a
right.
claw almost. Yeah, and you like there's a hole down at the bottom of the handle. You put your pinky in. And that's how you hold it.
Okay.
Like you're making a fist. Is how you're supposed to use it there. And those are really cool, and they can really mess you up really fast.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. I have a sword. There was this years and years ago. There was this guy that I knew who was I don't know why he was really into swords, but I was one of the five best men of the wedding, and he got swords made for us. And
Oh, nice.
when I left Pennsylvania to get down here, I think I shipped it in a suitcase. I don't know how. I don't know, or I think I shipped it like via FedEx. I couldn't because I didn't want to carry it in a suitcase. But I got it here. I don't remember even how I even got it here, but somebody came over to my house one day and they're like, "Is this a real short sword?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "It's sharp too." Like, but the guy wanted all of us to have it as a gift, and we took photos with men in suits at this wedding, all holding swords. He was really into them. But yeah, that I guess that comes with the territory. If you're kind of like, "Oh, metal dude, of course you have a sword, and of course you have a Filipino hacking blade with a hole for the pinky going to it to make sense. It makes complete sense to me."
And a mace behind the door. When you first walk in, I have a mace hanging up. Oh, actually, not a mace. I think you would call it a morning star. I have one of
Oh,
those
right,
hanging up as you walk in, so you don't see it when you first come in, but I see it if I have to
right,
grab it for any kind of reason. It's right there. I just pull it off the wall. Boom. You
right,
know.
right. Just in case a
Yeah.
guy comes in, he's like, "Hey, Brandon, I know you're busy, but do you have any meat tenderizer?" And you're like, "No, but I have this mace by the door. Conveniently, you're right next to it. We could tenderize that steak that you have there. You know."
The thing that really turns people away, even though we don't really have a lot of people at the house, like we're kind of homebodies. But anyways, we have a giant cryptopsy poster in our living
Mm,
room. As soon as you come in, you see it. It's
mm.
Jesus' head on a plate with Mary holding it. So
Oh,
that's really a good conversation
that's
starter.
for that's for None So Vile, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the first record is one of my favorite death metal records for the '90s. That's great.
Yeah, we got to see them live a couple of years ago and stuff, and we got the poster while we were there. Actually, it's not a
Wow.
poster; it's one of those big fabric posters, so it's
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
humongous. So yeah, that's what we have when you first walk in. You see that, so you know
Okay.
what you're in for, you know.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the visual that I have. I kept my camera up. I have I don't know if you could see that. I have behind me the Holy Mountain from Alejandro Jodorowsky. I put that up behind me, and because I thought this was going to be a visual podcast, and I told my wife, I was like, well, if he's going to see me, I want to make sure that I have one of my favorite movies back there. And over here, as you can see, I have that's a fabric poster over there of the movie the Witch movie, and I have a Faster Pussycat Kill Kill from Russ Meyer. I love Russ Meyer movies. They're trash, but I have a Faster Pussycat Kill Kill poster over there, which that's just like really oddball cinema.
It's good stuff though. Like it's entertaining as fuck, and yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. I need to actually I need to decorate the old podcast / music room. I have so many goddamn posters to get up and stuff, and I have this
Mm.
I was like so many. I was like, it's a chore because I have so much shit I want to get on the walls and do this and that
Yeah.
and with it. I'm like, man, you know. And I use I have a room just for podcasting and for music because I do my project now. I don't know if you've heard it. It's Abraxas
Mm.
Horn is the name of it, and it's like a
Okay.
uh industrial synth stuff. It's really weird stuff.
Abraxas Horn.
Yeah.
That's a cool name. That's a really cool name.
Yeah, I named it after my favorite movie, Mandy. So
Okay.
yeah, paying homage to that. So and
Okay.
that's up on like Bandcamp, Spotify, and all that stuff. And hopefully I got like something cool coming up with the Braxis Horn in the future here, like really short future. I don't want to say
Okay.
nothing yet till it's finalized, but something really awesome and it's been a goal of mine for a while. So hopefully that comes about. But yeah, if you dig like weird industrial synth soundscapey horror shit,
Okay.
I think you'll like
Yeah.
that.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been really great talking with you, Michael, and I could go for
Definitely.
another 2 hours. So we
Oh,
definitely
easily.
have to do this again, like hopefully another time this year. We can
Okay.
talk again and stuff.
Yeah, it's very easy, especially if we're doing it this way where I just popped open the laptop and chimed in via Skype because I have the microphone and everything set up and I couldn't remember how to do it and I was going to ask you as we started. I'm like, is everything working right? And then I heard you fine and you think this sounds fine for the podcast. That makes it even easier. So being that it was this easy, yeah, it would not be a problem at all. You could just text me or I'll send you my number on Instagram and you'd be like, hey, dude, do you want to do something? Blah blah blah, and that sounds fine, you know. And I have uh, hopefully a new book will be out in June at the Living Dead Con in Pittsburgh. It's a undead tale. It's specifically for that group of people up there who are going to be looking for zombie stuff. And so if you wanted to do something before then, to get more promo, that'd be great.
Sweet. And where can everybody find your work at before we
You
go?
can go to my website as www.thomasmichealthomas.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Delamorte Delagore, very similar to the Italian movie Delamorte Delamore. You just switch the G and the M. And
Hmm.
I'm on Twitter, but I hate Twitter, and that's it.
Yeah, Twitter sucks. I'm
Yeah,
on
it's
there too,
terrible.
but it sucks. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
hard.
I just do it to promote stuff, but I'll get like one view, so I don't really. It's not, for horror writers, it's not much unless you want to be on about current events. There's no real purpose on there.
I agree with that. Well,
But
Michael, I hope
thank you so much, Brandon. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, dude, it's been a fucking great talk and stuff. I'll send you a link to Abraxas Horn when I get off here with you and stuff. And I also send over my top 10 films of last year, since you said you don't really get around to watching a lot of the newer
Yeah.
stuff without knowing about it. So you
Okay.
can check that out, see what you think.
I'm gonna I'll post a photo today, and I'll put your logo on it, and I'm just gonna tag some of the things we talked about, because we talked about a huge amount of stuff, from like neurosis to black metal to 70s horror to current horror. So I'll just throw some tags on there just to promote, and just let me know when you upload it, and I'll try to social that as much as possible. Hopefully we get a lot of not clicks, views, no, listens. Hopefully
Listen, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. And I should have this episode up in probably like 3 weeks from now. I have one more I got to get out before this one comes out, and I should have this one out next. So probably about 3 weeks or so. Yeah.
That's perfect. Awesome. Alrighty, sir. Thank you very much.
Yep. Have a good weekend, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Take care. All right.